Hey y'all, welcome to Shade in the City. I'm your girl Treese, and I'm here to do our recap of Beyond the Gates. This is season 1, episode 30. This was Tuesday, March 8th episode. Okay. I know I'm a little late. Please forgive me. Yeah, y'all, I had a long day at work, like the full-time job. And yeah, a girl was tired and I had therapy yesterday too. And that's a part of me and my self-care is making sure that I'm going to sleep with y'all. Like I said, if y'all have been watching the times that I've been dropping these recaps, you know that I'm probably not sleeping. So I've been trying to make it a habit to have a hard at least 1:30 a.m. cutoff. And so I had hit that point last night where it was like, all right, you ain't got time to sit up, record, and edit and get it out. All right. So I said, I'll get it to them tomorrow. I'm sure they'll understand. So thank y'all for y'all understanding in advance. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit that like button. And if you like the vibe, please make sure you subscribe. All right. And so let's get into it. It's very all about the fashion show and very Chelsea heavy, which I love. I could definitely appreciate that. We had no DNA. Okay, so confetti for that. Unfortunately, spoiler alert for those who have not gotten to watch episode 31 yet. Guess what? You gonna get it. You gonna get it. Okay. But yeah, y'all. So let's get into this episode. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all. I cried. My emotional Pisces ex cried. I did. Let's get into this episode. Let's get shady. So this episode starts off Samantha, which we know is Smitty and Martin's one of the twins, their daughter. And she's talking about how Chelsea's fan site is, going crazy right now because everybody's aware that this is about to be her last show. Samantha suggests that, since Smitty is going, he should just let her tag along. And, he kind of blows her off like, nah. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, it's a school night. And I thought this was so adorable. And y'all, I watched this twice. I watched it yesterday live and I watched it again last night to, make sure I caught everything. And when I tell you, yeah, I cried both times. And it was the family of it all. It just touched my heart, right? Chelsea and Kat show up to surprise Samantha and let her know that she's coming with them to the show. So Samantha is thrilled and she's like, runs off to get ready. And Martin comes home to find Kat and Chelsea. And he shares with Chelsea that Smitty is, working on a new article, which Kat seems excited to hear that he's back to his writing. So Smitty is telling him that, yes, he's working on an article about influencers and asked Kat if she'd be willing to sit down with him so, he can do some research and talk to her about it. And so she agrees. And then we see Samantha come back down excited about her night out with her older cousins. Then we jump over to the family home, Dupree home. Vernon doesn't seem like he's really looking forward to the fashion show. Apparently, this is not really his thing. He and Anita both know that Danny might struggle at the thought of letting Chelsea go. We want to be there. Of course, we want to be there to support, regardless if we're into it or not. Then we see Danny at her home. She is admiring, old modeling photos of Chelsea and clearly reminiscent. And Andre, comes from behind to comfort her. And so he basically tells her to view this show. I love what he said. View this show as a celebration of the work that they've done together. And Danny was like, but I feel kind of bad because, yeah, you're wanting to be a celebration, but Chelsea clearly was unhappy and miserable the whole time. And so he's like, no, she wasn't. And, she didn't say that. And he basically explains to her that you gave Chelsea the foundation for her career and, basically gave her the push that she needed to even be able to start her purse line. And so Danny says, she knows that, but at the end of the day, she's of course still going to miss working with her daughter. Ted and Nicole are at their home getting ready, and Nicole speaks on how generous Chelsea is for doing the show. She said Chelsea was even thoughtful enough to not invite Bill because she knew he would come with his whore in hand. Yes, I said it. Okay. And so Ted makes a smart comment about how he tiptoe around Danny as well. And Nicole starts fussing at him about, not being compassionate, and tells him that Danny has been through a lot publicly, so they should be giving her some grace. And he says, look, I'm just plastic surgeon. And you know what? I rely on you for the emotional intelligence. Thank you for keeping me in check. Okay. And we could clearly see your lack of the emotional intelligence last episode, the way you was talking to Leslie. Okay. So then Nicole says, obviously she's very proud of Danny and how she's handling everything, despite everything she's been through. Now, Martin is at home trying to get himself together for the show. Smitty is doing research for his article. Martin thinks this is attractive, see Smitty all enthralled in his work, and questions, why would I ever try to keep you from returning to journalism? So then Smitty tells him, oh, well, I remember how good you look getting dressed up for fundraisers, okay? And so, he brings up how, he should have been more encouraging about his, presidential ambitions, because obviously they would have had to attend a lot of fundraisers. And then that's when Martin lets him know that he's actually starting to rethink the idea. He's had a conversation with his grandparents, and he realizes that family is more important, and his kids are getting older. They're not going to be in their home forever, and he doesn't want to miss out on that time. And I think that's really dope if it's true. We also know that he's trying to get rid of these nightmares that he's having, but I don't know. We'll see if that helps. So then they move on to whether Samantha and I believe it was Elaine Thompson in the comments. Shout out to you. Um, but she said she was tired of Smitty asking all these questions. And it's funny because in this scene, it was like, I see what you're talking about now. It's like every time they're having a conversation and they'll have a moment, even if it's a good moment, then it's followed by Smitty asking a question. And it's like, is that a part of the reporter in him or what? But it is starting to be a little like, okay, Smitty, can we just enjoy this moment? But anyway, so he goes into, whether they're going to let Samantha date or not. And so they agree that, she's responsible enough. And, they'll share the news after the fashion show. Then we see Ted and Nicole. They're joined by Anita and Vernon. Vernon asks Ted if he's met Tomas. Ted says, no, he hasn't. And he ain't really heard nothing about him. And he said, but Nicole knows more than I do. And so Nicole says, look, I don't know how serious it is. And that's why I ain't say nothing. Kat didn't give me no nuggets to make me feel like this is something I should tell you. I should even talk to you about. But she mentions that they did see him at the country club, and Vernon, took care of scowling at him, for Ted. He stood up for him. And so Anita asked Ted if Kat is going to continue to work for his practice, since she's going off doing this purse line with Chelsea. And Ted doesn't think that she'll be around much longer. Anita tells him that at least he had more time to prepare and find a replacement than Danny did. Then she reminisces on when Danny wanted to go off and model, and how she was so against it, and she was jumping up and down, throwing tantrums, and losing her mind. And she said, however, I realized that Danny needed to go through that, because it's helping her get through this situation with Chelsea. And because of what she had to go through and how hard she had to fight to chase her dreams, she can't stop her daughter from doing that. And I was like, yeah, go ahead. Anita's a wise one. I love me some Anita. So then Danny, back at Danny's house, Danny politely lets Andre know that Kat and Chelsea have shown up. They're apparently getting ready at her house for the show. And so she lets him know, can you please stop looking at me like a snack? Since I haven't said anything to anybody about you being my special friend with extraordinary benefits. And so, he's like, okay, friend, okay, I got you. So then Kat, Chelsea, and Samantha show up, and they're surprised to see Andre there too. Like, what you doing here? But Andre's the photographer. He's the visuals guy, right? So he can always jump in and just, play as he's assisting. Samantha's really curious, and she's like, oh, are you really ready to walk away from the runway? And for those, okay, first of all, let's just get through this episode. But I don't know about y'all, but I can guarantee you're gonna get tired of this girl asking Chelsea this question. I'm gonna just let that, and y'all let me know. Drop down in the comment. You can get tired of hearing Samantha ask her that, okay? But anyway, so Chelsea tells her, the spirit spoke to her, and when it speaks to you, you got to get the stepping. And so she says, and even, my mom did it at even an even younger age. And so Danny said, she doesn't know what the spirit is saying to Chelsea, but she supports her in Kat's dreams. Okay. And so Samantha jumps in to assist filming Chelsea with her live, assist her with filming her live stream. Samantha is in awe of, her wardrobe. We see them, she's going through the dresses, and she's like, "Are you sure you're really ready to let go of your modeling career?" Okay. They put Samantha they put Samantha in one of Chelsea's dresses, and then they teach her how to walk the runway. It was a really cute cousin moment. Loved it. Like I said, loved the whole family Dupree-ness of it all. So Danny's at the country club taking care of last minute details for the show. Her parents, Ted and Nicole, have arrived. And well, her parents and Ted and Nicole have arrived. Okay, let me separate that. So Vernon recognizes one of Anita's old dresses that apparently she's donated to auction off. Nicole checks in to see, how Danny's doing. And Danny says that tonight is about Chelsea. But said, check on me tomorrow, girl. Check on me tomorrow. And she says, "You know what? I'm gonna check on you tomorrow and every day after that." And I thought that was very sweet. Like I said, it was like a big Full House Family Matters episode. It was just warmed your heart. Anita is reminiscing, because her dress is up there, and she's reminiscing on her past career. And so Nicole comes over and she's like, "Oh, do you miss it?" And she said, "Well, no, I'm not gonna miss the dress because your daddy's bidding on it now. I'm gonna get it back." But Nicole's like, "No, I meant the life, mom. I meant the life." And so she's like, "Yeah, sometimes." And we all know she does. She does. It's very nostalgic for her. So Ted, Martin, and Smitty and Vernon, they're having a conversation. Tyrell isn't going to be at the show because he is at chess club, and they let them know that Samantha is hanging out with Kat and Chelsea. So Danny comes out, runs into Naomi, who's there without Jacob because he's at work. She lets her know how proud she is before she starts the show, and then they put Samantha on camera duty. Tomas shows up, surprises Kat at the fashion show, and of course she's happy to see him and lets him know that she'll be backstage, so he's going to be on his own, but they agree to catch up afterwards. Samantha then tells her dad, Naomi, and grandparents how much she's enjoying helping out at the show. Smitty mentions something about how he knows they must be disappointed she's not entering politics since it's the family business. And I felt like, in a way, that might have been kind of shady. I don't know. What did y'all think? Samantha says influencers, have more clout than politicians. And, Naomi agrees. So Ted goes to tell Martin that he has found a bracelet that he wants to get for Nicole for their anniversary. But he's, trying to keep it a secret, and that's hard to do because apparently Nicole is, I won't call her nosy, but she's just aware. So Martin mentions that he heard they were having their anniversary party and, says, let me know how I can help. And Ted gives him kudos for what he did for Samantha tonight. And, Martin shares that Tyrell is being picked on at school, and he tells them, they plan to put a stop to it. He plans to put his foot down. Like I think I told y'all that. And that's what he wants to do, is go throw his weight around and as the congressman, and I'm going to make this stop, right? And Ted tells him to let Tyrell figure things out on his own, or he might feel like they don't trust him to handle his own problems. And I was like, whoa, okay, Ted. I could appreciate it. And he does, he's like, my bad, son, for giving unwarranted advice. He said, but and Martin was like, yeah, I guess I'll put some thought into what you said. Now, Nicole goes and sits down next to Andre and thanks him for coming to her and letting her know that she needed to check in on Danny. She admits sometimes as a sister that she doesn't always, because that's her sister, she doesn't see the signs because she's not looking at her through the lens of a patient, right? Andre asks how she thinks, Danny's doing, and Nicole admits Danny told her she's putting on, a strong face for the night, but the real test will be after the event is over, which I absolutely agree. So then Vernon was real funny this episode, okay? So Vernon runs into Tomas, and Tomas is like, and she's like, oh, he was like, oh, you that boy that was running around with my granddaughter or my great granddaughter. It's no, Cat is his granddaughter. Okay. So he was like, yeah, you was running around with my granddaughter at the country of the day. And so Tomas introduces himself and he's like, I'm a friend of Cat. I don't know if anybody else caught that. And then Vernon calls over Ted and says, hey, come meet Cat's new boyfriend. And so, of course, here come Martin, here comes Smitty, and now he's surrounded. And I said, oh, this feels uncomfortable. And I ain't even in it. And until Martin asked Tomas, well, tell us about yourself, brother. And Tomas tells him that, I work for Bill Hamilton. And they like, oh, shit. And, he's like, would you consider Bill to be a good role model? And Tomas says, well, he is a good boss. And then they all kind of look at him with a side eye. And he said, but the way that he handled Danny was not okay. And of course, then they're like, okay, we won't completely X you out right now, but we still watching you. He says that he understands their concerns, and he has the utmost respect for Kat. And they tell him, "We're not worried about Kat. We're worried about you." And they warn him, "Don't ever cross her." And then they joke about you. You remember what happened to the last one? And then of course, Kat comes in to save him and pulls him out of the hot seat and puts him to work behind the camera because she tells Samantha that they need her backstage. So Anita comes over to tell Danny how good of a job that she's done on just the whole event. It did look beautiful. Danny gets sad and says it'll all be over soon. Anita reminds her that Chelsea isn't abandoning her. She's just ready to move on, like Danny was when she was her age. So as they start the show, and in my notes I say Danny makes a great MC. I don't know if anybody else caught that because when she did hosted Nicole's thing, she did really well. She's really good at that. Like I really feel like they should, instead of her harping on modeling, and we'll get there, but instead of harping on modeling, I think that she should go into some type of, like, we should see her in TV or something because her personality is, I don't know, like I said, I just clocked that. So Chelsea stressed the runway and looks amazing in all her looks. And then she brings out Samantha as a surprise. It was really cute to walk the runway with her. Everyone is telling Samantha how great she did. And she's on a high after being thrown on the runway. So Samantha says, you know what? I could do this forever. And she's like, she wants to talk to Danny. How? What do I do first? Like, how do I get into this? So Danny tells her that she can ask her anything, but I got to leave because they got to do the finale. And so Martin and Smitty said that, they can talk about her. They can talk about it. Okay. After the show. And then Danny comes out to introduce Chelsea and her first bag. It was really cute. Chelsea, and the dress was cute. I love how it went with the dress. It was very cute. And I'm happy she was in some clothes. Right. So Chelsea gives a speech at the end of the show. She gives Danny her flowers. I didn't want, like I said, y'all, at this point, my eyes are teary. I was a mess. Okay. But she gives Danny her flowers for hosting a beautiful event and all the values that her mother has passed along to her. And yeah, y'all, that pretty much, and it was a great show and it was wonderful and it was beautiful. And it was great. I was happy about it. So yeah, y'all. That was that episode of Beyond the Gates, episode 30. If you have not already, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you comment. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the notification bell. And make sure you're following us on all the platforms. You see it down there below at Shadeinthecity. We're on the Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, and the IG. And be on the lookout because, like I said, it will be a double header. So you probably will be routed to 31. So if you haven't watched it yet, I would stop yourself. But more than likely, you're going to probably be routed to 31 right after this goes off. So yeah, hope y'all enjoy. I will catch you for 31 and then see you for 32 tomorrow. Have a great day. Happy hump day. Have a good night. Bye-bye.